welcome to SiftMedia 215 Filmmakers Workshop. Sisters in Film and Television, aka SiftMedia 215 Collective, is a support system of several independent media artists who work in the Philadelphia metropolitan area and provide a community of support for socially conscious women-identified filmmakers. Our work is supported by the very generous Independence Public Media Foundation. Tonight's workshop, just some business, will be recorded for our archives, promotional purposes, and also to be available to our members who aren't able to make it tonight. We are going to stop the recording when we start talking about individual scripts so that there's no worry about people stealing ideas or people being worried talking about their scripts. So tonight we are presenting the Soulful Screenwriting Connecting to Self, Character, and Story workshop. It will be led by SIFT member Stephanie Malson. Stephanie Malson is a cinematographer, a writer, and producer with over 16 years experience in developing content for varying independent, nonprofit, and corporate entities. She's currently in development on a short narrative film, Slow Burn, and is also in post-production on a feature documentary, Ulrich, which she is co-producing. For the past 4 years, Stephanie has taught a writing workshop and creative scriptwriting as an adjunct professor at Temple University. She holds an MFA in creative writing from Rosemont College. So thank you for coming. Thank you for attending a SIFT workshop. Please look us up and support our work. And now I turn this program over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Nikki. Welcome, everyone. This is probably my first time presenting to a non-student audience. So hopefully you will enjoy this discussion. Just to kind of level set, I really would love participation. I think that's the way that this is going to feel, like an in-person workshop in some ways. And the other thing is just all of us being respectful of our work and our opinions and our voice. But essentially, how and why did we arrive at this topic? So I am a member of SIFT, and probably sometime last year, I volunteered myself to teach screenwriting. As Nikki mentioned, this is something that I do at Temple from semester to semester, teaching a higher level screenwriting class for students that are in the media studies department. And actually that is not their, I guess, trade. That is not a film department, but this is the one class that they get a chance to kind of explore ideas and build ideas from scratch, right? So what I'm hoping with this workshop is that you guys get some key takeaways. The biggest thing for me is that you are able to have time to examine your work. So in our description of this class, we wanted folks to have at least 2 pages of their work with them. And I really want you guys to not just listen to me or pay attention to me. You probably won't see much of me because I'm gonna have these slides up. But what I would love is for you guys to look at your work as we're kind of walking through this together. So this course or this workshop will include some hands-on elements, some film analysis, which is like my favorite thing to do. And also, just taking time to talk to you guys about your own work. It's also a great opportunity, which I think we rarely get in these kinds of workshops, is a chance to, talk about our pain points, things that we're challenged with creatively, and maybe coming up with some solutions on how to solve those problems. So let's get started. What we are attempting to do as screenwriters is to build a world, but remember, we are doing this for a visual medium, right? So how can we build this world in such a way that when it comes time for this thing to be produced, it is the blueprint, right? the actor, the director, the cinematographer can pick it up and create the literal visual of the world. How can they do that? It's on us as writers to make sure that we are creating compelling characters, that we are creating rich characters, right? And there's ways, I think, to do it, which is what I'm going to present to you this evening. But part of it is being a student just as much as we are writers, right? We'll talk a little bit more about that. The things that we may consider kind of basic practices, those elements such as journaling, such as observational writing, right? Reading other scripts, other forms of narrative, watching films, all of those things are essential elements to the practice of writing, because those are ways that we inform our writing and kind of shape it into what we're attempting to do. But in terms of soulful screenwriting, our primary goal is to be in communion with these elements here: you, the character, and the audience. Some people will say, you know, they don't care about the audience, right? Because you really don't see the audience when you're writing. The audience is far off. But the audience is your third partner ultimately, right? So when the audience gets to see this work in theaters or on television or at a film festival, they have to feel all of those points of connection: you, character, and story. If they don't feel those, something was off in that process. And obviously there's more to the development of film or cinema than just the writer's side, but we are an essential part of that process. So if we can start it off properly, I think that, you know, that'll just help make this even better. When I think about what our primary responsibility as writers is, to me, the biggest and most important thing that we can pay attention to as we are in development is our connection. Our connection to the characters, our connection to the world that we're building, our connection to the story, right? A lot of times as writers, we jump right into the plot. We jump right into the action. But it's the development of the character that's probably the most essential part of this process. If your character is not strong, and I would argue if all of your characters are not strong, your protagonist, antagonist, your secondary characters, even maybe the person that just pops up on the screen for a minute and goes away, which we will see an example of that tonight in one of the films that we're going to watch. Very important, because they're all driving the story in one way or another. They're all driving your character in one way or another. Let's do a quick grounding exercise. What I want you to do, sorry about that, let's take like 3 minutes. And I want you to answer this question: what are you carrying today? This is all about you, not about your characters. What are you carrying today? But no, I think the purpose of this exercise is, again, Cherise, thank you. You said my ancestors, about truth, grief, and joy. Those are all ripe for what we are doing tonight. All of those things, you guys are answering yourselves the questions that we will be asking of our characters this evening. So we're going to do a little bit more. All right. So we talked a lot about kind of how to go about developing our characters. The reason why I chose this particular clip to show is because that scene is, to me, one of the best scenes I've seen in a film, because for me, it is so relatable, right? And it's not just about these two Black women, a mother and a daughter. It's really about kind of what the dynamic is between a mother and a daughter. It could be a father and a son, right? but it says a lot about who Ruby is. It says a lot about who Ruth is just in this moment. So I asked you guys to kind of take notes while you were watching, and I have the script up here as a point of reference as well. What did you take away from that scene as it relates to Ruby as a character? Let me just say this really quick. All of the things.
Yeah.
Everything you guys are mentioning here is very accurate. We're thinking about this from the mind of the writer. The writer sitting at the table, typing out this scene. And on the side of, I'm just imagining this is what Ava's doing. On the side of, on her notepad, these are all the things that you're mentioning, you guys are mentioning, that she is thinking about or has as a list when she's kind of mapping out what this character is going to do, what Ruth in particular is going to do. Yes, apathy, disappointed, all. And I love Imayati as an actress who plays Ruby, because she shows it in her face, right? She shows that, because as we'll learn quickly, these scenes move. They're not stagnant, which means your character is not stagnant either. All right, so connecting the story. When we're talking about connecting to story, what I'm really going to emphasize here is connecting to scenes. One of my favorite things to talk about is scene development, because I think there's so much to learn from how scenes kind of flow. We're not going to talk about plot. I believe that if you have a solid handle on your character, your plot will unfold. But when we're struggling with our scenes or moving the story forward, it is always helpful to look at the structure of your scenes. What are the components of a good scene? And how do we make these scenes come alive? Essentially, these kind of 4 elements, I think, are important to the structure of every scene, not just kind of like your broad global story. When you read scripts particularly, and of course, when you watch films, you see that every scene has some type of movement to it. The character is always doing something, learning something, resolving something, whatever. When we talk about what makes scenes dynamic, what we're talking about is, what is the purpose of the scene? Why is the scene happening? Why are we getting this scene when we're getting it? Is there some type of discovery, decision, and action happening with your character? When you watch films, think about discovery, decision, action. Do you see a discovery, a character making a discovery? Do you see them making a decision and taking an action? In most films, that happens, right? We just are so trained in watching film and television that it's kind of automatic, but it's essential to. So when I'm working on my script and I have kind of, let's say, that first draft, right? And I'm kind of revising my scenes and plot and all of that stuff. These are kind of my anchor questions. Surface action is, what is happening to the character physically based on their decisions, right? Deep action is, what is happening to the character emotionally based on their decisions. And that ties back to our earlier part of the conversation related to developing kind of that inward thing, right? This is how you can move forward with your scenes. And one more tip, which is, so what is the objective of the scene? Every scene has an objective, right? Every scene has a reason why. Where does the scene begin? Where does the scene end? And this isn't so much as like, how does it start? How does it end? It's more about, what is the actual core idea and how does it tie to your plot? How does it tie to your character's evolution in the story, right? Cool, thank you. Thank you to everybody that came through and had to leave. All right, so let's talk about your work.